Hello. I'm going to add on a little bit here to what I was talking about last week, which was evil, spirituality, goodness, all that stuff. We know that outside of us, there are energies that feed on our negativity, anger, um, hatred, fear, and so on. All these things are food fed are food for these spiritual entities that they're around just as good entities and neutral entities. So there's a whole fifth dimension, sixth, whatever dimension you want to call it. There's an interdimensional universe that we live in, and other dimension, we'll call it dimensions for convenience here, can enter into our area and take something. It's not so much physical stuff, it's mainly just energetic, spiritual, imagination. All these kind of things are there's an interaction when we have uh, our energy, um, that creative energy, our being in this world when we're fully alive. We we have these parasites in the spiritual world that will feed on us. But most the negative ones like to feed on our anger and so on, all that kind of negative energy. And they will justify us in that negativity. Even though we may have no more feelings about that, they'll keep goading us. And the more they do that, and the more we allow them to do that, the more they afflict us. Sometimes they afflict people in very serious ways. How and why this all happens is mysterious. And who knows what the origin is? It's very difficult to understand for us who live in a very dense world right now. But what I need, the basic thing that I'm trying to give out is that we're okay just the way we are. That in our essence, we are very pure. We have a pure essence that the level is very precious. It's that most intimate, precious part of us that we instinctively protect through developing a kind of ego. That ego helps us solve problems. It's basically the left brain that helps us solve problems and deal with the exigencies that come into our lives we have to handle. We have to handle that. So there's nothing wrong with that part of us. It's just that over time, in a society that disparages spirituality, our society, in case can't tell, does not like spirituality. It wants us to strive, wants us to move, wants us to work hard and ignore our feelings and go beyond them and just become these automatons that help fuel industry. I see this even more now than ever. I see this in ads, in stories, in mythological structures about going above and beyond what is necessary, almost being almost crazed. Sometimes athletes are portrayed this way as being, constantly practicing, constantly working. Um, that's the myth that we live by. So there's certain myths we live by that feed a kind of negativity. Ambition can be negative, for example. It depends on what that ambition is for. If it's an ambition for glory, well, you're doing well in the sense that that glory is what the society wants you to pursue. It does not want you to pursue spirituality or God or the health of your friend, or your neighbors, or even the society as a whole. So here we have to start trying to understand what we need as human beings to thrive, to enable that part of us, that holy part of us, that intimate, precious part of us to thrive. Not just my for me, but for everybody. Now, for me, it's easy. It's kind of been on a path for decades and decades, and it's pointed me in a direction. I've been helped by all kinds of people, by teachers and so on and so forth, that have helped me along the way to see things that work for me. But for most people, they don't have that because in my case, this was a goal of mine starting in childhood. So naturally, I would have these experiences because this is what I wanted all along that helped me develop spiritually. But most people don't see the use of it. They have their lives to lead, their children to raise, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's not enough because there are essential things that I think science has illuminated somewhat uh, to sort of tell us what it is we need as human beings. And I wrote this down here. The first thing we need is to be accepted by a social structure of some kind. So when we're brought out into the world, it's kind of paradoxical because I'm saying, well, you need to develop that inner self that's holy, that's whole, all that stuff. But that's not what I mean. What I mean is that part of us that's human, that that is carries that holy being inside. Uh, that part of us needs to be more I guess you'd say less stressed and more comfortable. And we in our society, we tend to be isolated, even if we're around people. There's this sense of isolation is that I'm pursuing my dreams. Well, okay. So we're all pursuing our little dreams, but where do we connect? And as I've said before, that part of us that connects is actually that part of us that is most intimately who we really are, a true self. That's our true self, and that's what needs to develop out of our personality, out of that this body we live in, the family we were brought up in, the society, the religion, the cultural traditions, and so on and so forth. All that stuff takes up our identity. Nothing wrong with any of that. That's appropriate. And but what we need is a structure that will make us feel good. It'll make us feel comfortable. It'll make us feel community. Uh, it's like having common meals either with your family or with your extended family in particular, or groups of people. This is very healthy. And the more we stray from that, the more we have our little car, our little house separate from everybody else. We don't know our neighbors. We don't care about our neighbors. And for the most part, in most, at least middle class, upper middle class communities, uh, that's how we live. In the much poorer communities, of course, people are forced together because they have to bring something because they lack everything. So they need their neighbors, they need some friends, they need to keep networking as much as they can. And one of the things I saw that was very positive recently was a series of videos by someone who had been checking into these spontaneous communities that arise out of so-called homeless people who live in their cars, their RVs or their vans, or even just their car. And I've seen numerous videos of people doing that. But what's interesting and what's developing is that they're coming into some kind of community. So hundreds or dozens of them will come together in a spot. What that spot is, I don't know. I don't know or there's perhaps a network of places where these people can gather, but they do gather. And they come together having communal meals, playing music together, very important, really lacking in our culture. It's kind of shameful that music and dance is missing from our lives. Uh, I mean, I dance and play music in private, but I'd love to have more of that with other people. I mean, I've had that in my life, but at the moment, it seems like I think since the COVID bullshit, that people are reluctant to get together or just shy. I don't know what's going on. But whatever it is, we don't have good communities. There are communities. I'm not saying there's none, but I think for the most part, the movement, the tendency is to not have communities. And then on the other hand, there's a certain hunger for community that is fueling the online community that we search for. and that we try to meet our needs on the online community. That's not going to work. Um, it's just it's not it's like it's poor. It's like there's no energy to it. There's no give and take, physical give and take. It's a big different thing. If you compare sitting down with someone else to hear you and I talking to each other or whatever on a screen, even though we can talk about a lot of things and make a connection, it's nowhere near what it's like with a human being. It's more in the head, it's more absent because you're not physically present. You're not here physically. So, how can you fully understand what I'm talking about? Because in the physical world, we make certain communications through I don't know, scent and vibration. So I believe we have auras, and I believe our energy extends beyond us. And I've done these tests of that. I've done work with seeing in back of my head or in peripheral vision in one of my martial arts programs. So I know I can do that. I know I can see behind me. I can feel behind me. Let's put it that way. And that, this whole thing with people staring at you're staring at someone and then suddenly they turn around. Well, that's common. It's nothing unique. It's just a common thing. We have connections using our psyche, using our awareness. We can, even if that person's, 50 feet that way, we can we can influence their energy for good or bad. I mean, it can be good. We can just exude real positivity and those people are going to feel better. We don't believe it, unfortunately, which lessens the power of it. But if you can start believing it a little bit, because it's true. I mean, there's been a lot of tests on this. There's lots of ways to measure this if you don't believe in spirit, but there's something or other that connects us all. So that's a human community. So it's not like we come together and I'll talk about philosophy or spirituality. We come together, we eat together, we play music together. We talk about our childhoods or what we've used to do, what we've seen and where we've traveled and what these people are like and what those people are like. And no, no, no. There's all kinds of things to talk about. And when it almost doesn't matter what you talk about, as long as this common feeling of being together, of sharing a drink, sharing a meal, that's very, very important. The second thing is connection to nature. We need, this is again, this is not me. This is by this, these, these three things are presented by a neuroscientist whose job it is to figure out what makes people happy. Also a psychiatrist and physician. And then the second one is closeness, like I said, closeness to nature. For some reason, this really helps. If you go outside, if you talk to the birds or don't talk to the birds, if you touch a tree, if you sit on the ground, a lot of grounding exercises are common in New Agey type of ideas is take your shoes and socks off and put your feet in the soil, which I occasionally do. I haven't done it this spring yet for complicated reasons. Usually my dogs are around, and if they run around, they'll mess up my feet. But anyway, they're getting better, so I'll go outside without them. But I used to do this from time to time. But that natural world around us, the trees, the grass, the sunshine, the energy of the moonshine. The other night I had moonshine shine through me because I was sleeping in another part of the house, and I had a moon bath, which I thought was pretty good. So these things are important. And the third thing is a sense of the transcendent. So there's a transcendent reality. And that's sometimes connected to religion. But let me just put that religion word aside for a moment. It's our ability to see that there's a higher level of reality and an order to the universe that we don't understand, which I believe is completely true. I don't think we can understand the entire universe given our human existence and our human minds, no matter how brilliant we are. We can have a sense of it. We can have a vague sense of it, that it's there somewhere in that this or that direction, but we can't get exact about it. Partly because there's no exactness around that transcendent uh, higher level of reality. It's just different dimensions that it's impossible for us in the three-dimensional world to understand. Even if we had the complete ability, it's only through visionary qualities, through being transported. Sometimes people have near-death experiences where they connect with another level of reality. I've had a couple of those, several of those, a couple in meditation and some of them in other situations where I was transported, sometimes in dreams. I was transported to this other level of reality that showed me conceptual frameworks, I guess you'd call it, that helped me understand what the universe is like, that it is, first of all, much larger than I had ever imagined, meaning its hugeness is just amazingly large. However, by being in touch with the energy of love and joy, I can begin to approximate it. That's like my path, if you want, or a bridge. The little bridge to heaven is through love and joy and gratitude. They're very linked because when you feel that love and that feeling of joy, what else can you do but be grateful? I mean, it's really great. Why wouldn't you? And that gratefulness is how you connect with that transcendent world and how you avoid the sort of negative spirits that are hanging around in this other level of reality uh, that what do they call it? There's another term for it, but it's not the heaven level. It's not the angelic level. It's between us and the angelic level. There's this level of reality that's there that has all kinds of spiritual energies coming through it, including very negative ones that want to degrade us, want to bring us down, want to make us feel bad, make us feel fearful, make us feel angry, resentful, worried, fear, for example, politics in this country and in the United States at any rate is impossible because it's filled with these temptations to get mad at this group or this politician or that politician. And we say, oh, that person's really bad. Look, they're lying all the time. Here's a hint. I lived in Washington and known political people. And the one thing I can tell you is that lying is at the center of their lives. You know, lying is to politics what dribbling is to basketball. It's essential. You can't possibly play the political game without lying. It just, and it's, you can't blame those people. It's the society that demands it. It's our, our frankly very sick culture with distorted values that wants to live an illusion. We want to imagine that we're doing very well. We want to imagine that we're the greatest country in the world, the greatest military, and all this other kind of stuff. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not. We like doing that. We like the feeling. We go to movies. Go to the movies I hate, which is like superhero movies, which is just constant violence and threats and ridiculous ways to solve. Superheroes, they don't need to solve a problem. They can just wave their hand and they're knocking somebody out without even hardly trying. That's not what life's about. Now, at a certain sort of very primitive, childish level, yeah, sure. It's like you can manipulate reality if you want. And I think that's perhaps the aspiration of superhero movies or superhero comic books when I was growing up, which is that they make us feel more empowered in a world where we're completely disempowered. And don't think you have any power. There is no democracy here in this culture. It's gone along with the Constitution, rule of law, international law, all the rest of it. It's nothing like that. We're moving into a sort of vaguely neo-feudal culture. And that's it, and the way it's always been. It's like we think we're more virtuous than people from the past. We're not. This is no more virtuous than the Roman Empire. And they were pretty bad in many ways. And we're just as bad. We do the cruelties, the torture, the the violence, the rape, the child abuse, rampant everywhere, probably at all times. But I specifically know more about Rome because a lot was written about it. And in times when you don't know what was written about it, you can tell that there were certain problems with all of these things that we now plague us. But we're not better, is what I'm saying. The 18th century Enlightenment that founded the United States of America was a great, amazing, heroic thing to do, but it's fallen apart. It's no longer there. I mean, it's like there's a kind of vague spirit of being interested in freedom here, which I still believe we have that cultural energy of being wanting to be free. And so that kind of buoys us up a little bit from despair. And there's also there's a wanting to be more positive. So I think positive thinking can be dangerous, but it's better than the alternative. It's better than despair. But the problem is when you have people at the very top who live in a fantasy world and they have they direct armies and guns and missiles and airplanes and all the things that are happening today in this war in Iran, which is we're just going to lay on a hurting on these people. We don't know anything about them. Our president knows virtually nothing about either history, war, what dynamics are important in war, or any of it. He's ignorant, and but he symbolizes us. I don't demonize the guy. He's just trying to be who he is, and because he's very positive and very ego-centered himself. He can manage to almost change reality by his improbable elections, his ability to keep himself from disasters. So far, although this particular war looks like a major disaster that he's not going to be able to get out of, but who knows? But that's not important. I don't want to argue about this political position or that political position. I don't think it's relevant. All I can say is that we need a major change in order to accomplish these three things. Create a society that welcomes us, that gives us that says we're valuable no matter who we are, which is a very Christian thing. For example, is that we are valuable in who we are. That precious soul part of us can thrive rather than the ego part of us. I want to be famous. Da, da, da. No, we want you to be who you are. We don't want to force you to force anything. We just want you to grow and emerge and be the great, singer or writer or soldier or politician or whatever skill you may have, carpenter, et cetera, et cetera. That that unity of our soul and our body in this world has to be more harmonious. And it can only be harmonious, in my view, if we have a society that welcomes us, that nurtures us, that says yes to us, says yes to who we are. And then the second thing is we have to stop this alienation from the natural world. The natural world is out there. It has all kinds of beauty in it. It has everything. It's what gives us our life, our food, comes from the natural world. The air comes from the natural world. What else? The water. Everything comes from this natural world that gets packaged into these weird products that are given to us or sold to us with primarily by people who are only interested in making money. So if they can cheat, they will cheat. Fortunately, the cheating is not that bad. It could be a lot worse. But in the grocery industry, particularly, there's still you get an onion, you got an onion. It may be fertilized by uh, unpleasant fertilizers or chemicals may be dangerous to us. Their insecticides and herbicides may be dangerous to us. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I think that some of these things are dangerous to us, but it's too complicated to try to go into. All I know is that these corporations, the more that they own land, the more that they own farms, the more that they own the means of distribution, and so on and so forth, the worse it is for us because their only focus is on profit. And that's not going to maintain us. Profit is not one of the things we need. It can help in a orderly if it's orderly and there's limitations so that you don't cheat, you don't you know make your product toxic, and that's where we are right now. We have a lot of products that are toxic and we don't know how to handle it. And any you can look at that because there are many products that are legal here in the United States, they're illegal in other countries. And why is that? Well, look into it and you'll see why. So we have to be careful about these things. Uh, but you can't blame these other guys, these producers. You got to blame the society and the values that you personify. So to the extent that you're selfish, meaning the ego selfishness, that's what feeds the culture of excuse me, um, that's a culture that enables the greedy and the narcissistic and the sociopaths and psychopaths to rise to the top. Why do you think all the leaders are so toxic? Leaders in private industry, they get to a certain point, into the highest level, they're usually narcissists. They're usually very happy to, uh, do extremely negative things, kill their rivals. They're basically like, you know, gang heads of gangs. They'll do anything. They don't have any sense of morality. If they had a sense of morality, they wouldn't have gotten to the top of that particular corporation if they're going up through the ranks. If they founded the corporation, that's a different. I'm not going to get into that now, but there is a difference. And the third thing is the transcendent. We don't have a religion other than consumerism. That, to be blunt, and even these so-called Christians, they worship not Jesus, but consumerism. Some do, but the vast majority of particularly conservative Christians I've met, this is very much a problem with conservatives, is they talk this game of like, oh, living by the Bible and Jesus is my Lord and da da da. They're lying most of the time, literally, because that's not what they're interested in. They're interested in making more money. They're interested in jet skis. They're interested in that girl down the road that is not their, or the woman down the road that's not their wife, that's looking awfully hot in church. Yeah, you think I'm kidding? I'm not. Christians have made these service. I went to some years ago. I went to a Christian website. I'm very open to Christianity. I mean, I feel very much like a Christian, but I'm not churched. Uh, but in other words, I think there's validity and I think there's hope for us in that direction. But they made a survey of the sexual practices, for example, of Christians compared to the sexual practices of non-Christians. They were the same. Pornography, adultery, whatever, they're this kind of the same. I mean, there's minor changes here and there. They're not more virtuous in terms of sex because really regulating sex is not the main purpose of religion at all. It's a minor subject that we shouldn't be bothered with. It was a big deal in the ancient times, maybe. For one thing, you didn't want a lot of homosexuals in a tribe that um, needed all the kids and marriages and all that they could get because they were at the edge of living, leg end of survival. They had to have lots of young boys and young women do the work. If you were not engaging in official sexuality, you weren't giving us any kids. That's not a very positive thing for the tribe. But in today's world, we don't need more kids. We need happiness. So the homosexual rules against homosexuality are kind of silly. First of all, they're just not important. What we do sexually is like it's like a minor. We make it a big thing, but it's really not a big thing in compared to spirituality of having that pure part of us be kept intact. Now, there's been a lot of work with sexuality and spirituality by uh, Saint Augustine, who hated sex because he was addicted to it as a youth. So he thought this was the most horrible thing. Well, yeah, it keeps you, if you get addicted to sex or anything, it's going to keep your spirituality down, seriously. But ignore that for now. We know what's valuable is to have the sense of transcendence, to be able to have our lives not only in socially interacting with real people in real events and real get-togethers with real conversations, real meals sharing, all that kind of stuff. And I've lived in societies like that were more like that than ours, but that was a long time ago. Today, I think this isolation is spread everywhere in the West. And well, we'll see. But we need that transcendence of uh, a way of thinking about the cosmic level, the larger level that we cannot understand. There has to be that relationship. So we we aren't completely isolated in this kind of meaningless world because if we accept science and a lot of the science oriented people, the atheists particularly, think that life is completely meaningless. All right, you want to live that way, good luck to you. But most healthy human beings cannot live that way. We need all these things. We need meaning. We need all the things I described. Um, the negative energies will feed on you if you don't have your basic grounding in society, which could be just family, it could be just anything, but it has to be in humanity, where your humanity is accepted. Connection with nature, and again, connection with the transcendent part of our existence. There has to be some sense of that. So to keep us intact, to keep us grounded, to keep us growing and understanding the nature of our lives, our pasts, and dealing with all the trauma that we have around us, which I think will be the subject of the next piece in my next talk. So I hope this finds you okay. Hopefully, I'll have something before Easter and in a couple of days, or maybe even tomorrow, on this subject. See you next time.